Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody, to this session. Hope you had a great break. I sure did. Talking for 3 hours is very, very tiring. So need a lot of energy and need a lot of rest. So I hope that you are with me, full of energy, energized, and we are going to begin our afternoon session with a little quiz. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, Umu, I cannot seem to share my screen. Umu, can you allow me to share my screen, please? Umu, are you there? Yes? No?
Okay, can you try?
Okay, now yes.
All right, okay.
Thank you. Okay, now I hope I'm swiping to the correct screen. Hang on. Okay. We'll play a little quiz. Quiz is, everyone, please join myquiz.com and enter this code 051989. I shall be waiting for you to join this quiz. It's Quizzes, of course, the classic Quizzes from your device. Go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the code 051989. Right. We've got our first Dr. Lim. Congratulations. We've got Jay in.
Sorry, what's the code?
The code is 051989.
Okay.
All right. It's on Quizzes. Yeah. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, excellent. Got yeah, more people are coming in. So we've got Dr. Muhammad Azam Ismail, full name, like that. And Dr. Clarissa is here, MA is here, Umu is here. All right. I'll give it a couple of minutes to allow everyone some time to join. Great. Numbers increasing. I've got 10 people already in the quiz. This is a recap of what we did this morning. So I'm sure all of you will pass with flying colors. Right, we're gonna wait for more people to join. Right, we've got 10 people already. Yeah. Join myquiz.com and enter the join code 051989. Okay. So we'll give people some time to join. There we go. We've got 13 already. Hey, there's a Rose in the house. That makes 2 of us. We'll give it another minute, slowly, for everyone to join in. Okay. All right, I'm gonna start the quiz already. Umu, you can probably put in the join code in the chat box just in case there are people who come in, trickle in, and would like to join the quiz. Yeah?
Yeah, I already put.
All right.
Okay.
So I shall begin. There are 10 questions about what we did this morning. Okay? So ready? Let's start the quiz. All right. all the best. It shouldn't take long. Very simple questions. V is in the lead. J, we've got like answer strikes there. On fire, you're on fire. Right. Yeah, we've got new people joining. Wow, Jay, you're on fire, Jay. Okay. V and J are taking turns to be the leader. Oh, RE has taken over. V and J. Oh, V is back on top. It's a great race going on right there. Right. Oh, we've got people climbing up the leaderboard. And Hero, you are done. Okay, we're waiting for everyone to finish, complete the quiz. Give some time. Here, a few of you have completed it. V and J are still fighting for the top spot. Oh, but Sue has taken over. Oh, J has taken the lead again. Oh wow, Sue. Like 9 answer strikes there. Okay, we've got our run and see in terms of accuracy. We've got 65% accuracy, 66. Alright, just waiting for a couple of people to finish. Then we can end the game. Sue, perfect, Sue. Well done, Sue. Okay. Quite a few people who are still doing. Okay. Oh, Hero comes along. It's a fan of Mariah Carey. Here we've got some friends who just joined us. Oh, V, what happened to you, V? I think you have one more question not answered, right? Right, we've got new people who have just joined us. So I'll give you some time to answer at least some of the questions. Okay. Irene Young is on the roll there. No mistakes yet. Okay. Wait for our friends to at least attempt some of the questions. Oh, hero comes along, suddenly jumps up the leaderboard. Right. There we go. Wow, hero comes along, suddenly jumps up, becomes the second on the leaderboard. Yeah, Clarissa is peeking from the bottom. And you restarted the game, Dr. Clarissa.
Thing is up.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna give you another 1 minute, and then I will end the game so that we can look at the answers together. Okay. Right. Let's see. Oh, somebody give me an I Will Survive. All the song titles. I Will Survive. Okay, now I think I'm going to end the game soon. Now everybody has got a chance to answer. Okay. All right. Dr. Clarissa has overtaken Sue, and 0-0 is catching from behind. Okay, I'll let you guys finish the last question. And I'm going to end the game. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'll end the game now. Okay, now let's see. So that's Clarissa and 0-0. Yay! Give yourselves a hand. Okay. Going in twice, right? Okay, never mind. We will go through the questions. Okay, let's look at the question. Number 1, what does ADDIE stand for? And of course, it is analysis, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. Okay, it's the first one. Okay, and then next question. Which of the following are examples of instructional design models? There's no model called ANT yet. Maybe I can create that ANT model of instructional design, but of course there's ADDIE, Assure, and ARCS. And then constructive alignment simply means aligning these three: learning outcomes, learning assessments, and learning activities. Okay. When a teacher teaches really well, students are sure to learn well. Well, maybe, we don't know. We don't know for sure. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So it's a maybe. And then the following is desired out of the Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan. I am glad that 18 people answered it correctly, individuals who are balanced and harmonious. Okay. And then the next question is not UNESCO's 5 pillars of learning, is learning to work. There's learning to do, learning to know, learning to be, learning to live together, and learning to transform oneself and others, right? So learning to work is not there. And then ART's motivational model requires teachers to make content relevant to the students so that they will be confident to use the knowledge gained. Remember, ARCS, A-R-C-S. R is relevant and C is confidence. Okay. Next question. Information that will be useful to know before we design our learning environment. We need to know all of them, right? Who, the what, the why, and I did mention it would be good to know what resources do we have to teach it. Okay. The next question from Ghani. It is not necessary for us to have collaborative work, but definitely we need to elicit performance, meaning the students practice, and then we provide feedback, stimulate recall of prior learning is definitely a necessity. But collaborative work is not a necessary step in Ghani. Finally, defining clear learning outcomes are essential. Definitely is true. We have to be clear of where we want to take our students at the end of the day. Okay, so well done, everyone, and give yourselves a pat in the back for doing well in this quiz, right? I'm going to exit this and then I'm going to go back to my slide. Where's my slide? Okay, there we go. So this morning we looked at, we stopped here, the learning design matrix, which we will do this afternoon. I already have the template for you so that you can practice. Before you do that, I'm going to go again into the ARCS model because this model is very much in need at this point of time because of the whole online learning where motivation is an issue. Okay. Again, John Keller said that the cycle of learning to motivate the students, we need to have all of these in place. First, attention, gain students' attention so that they'll be curious of the subject matter. This morning, just now after we finished our session during lunch, my daughter was telling me, today's class was so interesting. She's in Form 3. I said, what was so interesting? Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah, what was so much fun? What did the teacher do? Oh, we talked about radioactive elements, and then the teacher related it to, you know, pesticides and all that. And then she was talking about how, you know, when we purchase from a certain supermarket, the vegetables are very fresh. They look very beautiful. So she said there must be a lot of pesticides. There must be a lot of radioactivity and whatever. And then also another subject this morning that she said was very interesting was English. because the teacher was talking about bakeries, and there were kids in the class who wanted to become bakers, so it was a very active conversation. Yeah. Sometimes we do not need to be fancy, but we hit the content in the right places, meaning the way that we present it, the way that, number two, we make it relevant to the students. First, we gain the attention by, presenting how interesting it is, how interesting the subject matter is, and how it relates to their everyday lives, the relevance of it. Yeah. And then once it is relevant, again, students will be hooked, want to listen more, they want to know more, and it builds their confidence. Number three, confidence means they can perform a task based on the knowledge that we have given them independently. So they know how to use it. They know how to use that particular piece of information in solving a problem, in answering a certain question, or in explaining a certain situation. So they're confident with that, with the knowledge that they get. Once they are confident, now they are satisfied. When they are satisfied, it reinforces their intrinsic motivation to want to know more. They want to come to the next class. They are looking forward to doing the next activity and learning the next topic. So this cycle is complete. Yeah, this is another way of gauging whether our lessons are effective or not. It's through looking at how students give us feedback in terms of their own motivation to continue with the learning process. Okay, so this is the ARTS model. And there is a book by John Keller that explains in detail what each phase constitutes. Yeah, how to gain attention, how to make it relevant. In relevance, if you see my notes here, goal orientation, that's where the learning outcome is. That's where we have to explain in detail the objective of this class and what are they going to achieve. Give them a very clear picture of the end game. The analogy is this. When we want to travel somewhere, I mean, we have not traveled for a long time. We hope that COVID and will go away with the vaccine and stuff. But when we do travel again, to go to a new place, we usually would require, somebody to send us a location, or we Google it on Google Maps, or we find it on Waze. Google Maps and Waze will show us the direction. Yeah. But if it is a new place, we do not know what it looks like, we would sort of grapple a bit as to what the destination should be. For example, if I want to go to Dr. Clarissa's house. Say, Dr. Clarissa, I would like to visit you. And can you please give me your address? So Dr. Clarissa will give me her address. And then I will require another information from her, saying, Dr. Clarissa, can you please give me a picture of the front of your house? Okay, so now I have two information. One, I know the address, which I can input into Waze. And number two, I have a visual of exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so when I have that visual, I drive using Waze and I drive using Google Maps, and I follow the routes. And when I get to this, what is supposedly Dr. Clarissa's housing area, I am confident that I am there based on the visual that she gave me. Okay. Example, if Dr. Clarissa gave me, the picture of her building, for instance, if she lives in a condominium building, and then when I drive, and then suddenly, I see all of these landed properties, I don't see any high-rise building at all. So I was like, oh no, I do not think I'm in the right place. Maybe I've inputted the address wrong because I do not see any condominium building, right? As opposed to if I don't have a picture of what Dr. Kulisha's house looked like, I might just follow, and then at the end of the day, okay, Way says you have reached your destination. And I was like, okay, now this is a restaurant, not a house. So I am left guessing until the finish line, until my destination, because I don't have that clear visual. So that's how we make it relevant to the student. We give them a clear visual of where they're supposed to go. And then it will match the expectation of the students with our expectation of what they should achieve. Because the visual is the same, right? And it's like when we know what to look for, our mind will keep on looking for it. Like in the beginning of this session in the morning, I gave you 4 objectives that we were going to achieve today. So in your mind, maybe subconsciously, you are already looking for all of this. How am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to, what are the fundamentals of instructional design that I need to know? How do I use it? So you already have this map of where we're going. So giving a clear visualization of the goal of the objective that the students are expected to achieve, it will help them, in finding all the relevant information. Like my lecturer says that you're supposed to learn this. I'm looking for it. If I don't find it, then I can ask the lecturer. Let's say, doctor, the other day you said that we're going to learn this, and I'm supposed to be able to do this, but I am not finding it yet, or am I not clear about it? Which part am I missing? So it gives them cues of what to look for and what questions to ask. So it's very much guided. Okay, so that's in terms of relevance, and of course, it will build the confidence, and then they will be successful at achieving the outcomes when the materials are made relevant to them. All right, this is what I would like to highlight in terms of now in an online learning environment. This has to be made explicit, very, very clear, and no room for assumption, because we do not know what's going on the other side of the screen. If we're using Microsoft Teams, it's worse, because now I'm looking at my slide. I cannot look at you. I don't know who's in there, who's not in there. I don't have access to the chat box, so it's worse. So it's like, I'm talking, I don't know who's receiving, who's not receiving. Yeah. Therefore, we cannot leave any gray area in our instruction. Okay, so that's about arts motivational model. Okay, now we're going to do this practical learning design matrix. I'm going to stop sharing for a short while. Okay. So in your Padlet, let me open my Padlet. Okay. I have given you the link to the learning design matrix template right at the end of activity. Let me just share my screen again. Okay. Right there, the learning design matrix template. If you click on it, then you can see this, the learning design matrix template. Okay. Now, of course, if you were to use this piece of Google Sheets together, it's going to be overlapping one another. What I want you to do is either you copy this sheet you know, or you download it, whatever that you want to do, or maybe just duplicate this sheet onto another tab. See, look, I'm duplicating one. Okay, so I have got 2 sheets here. You can keep on duplicating. You can change your name. For example, the sheet 1, I'm going to rename it. I'll claim it as mine. For example, this is Rose. Okay, and you can keep on duplicating and work in the same space. Or if you want to transfer it to your own Google Drive, save a copy in your Google Drive. So what I'm going to ask you to do this afternoon is, I want you to look at the subject matter that you are going to teach next semester. Okay. Look at the first 2 weeks. I'm not asking you to do the whole 14 weeks, no. Look at the first 2 weeks of content and list the topics here. List the topics. And for each topic, define your learning outcomes. Maybe for one topic, there are 3 learning outcomes. Maybe for one topic, there are 4 learning outcomes. So it depends again on your topic. Okay, topic, for example, is now active learning strategies, for example, yeah. So my learning outcomes, just now I have 3, right? LO1, I have LO2, then LO3. Okay, now how do I assess? You can plan your assessment for each LO, and then you can plan for your learning activities according to Ghani. Now, here's the thing. For your learning activities, it does not necessarily mean that for each learning outcome, you have pre-instructional. You might have pre-instructional for just the first LO to introduce the topic, okay? And you might have one follow-through activity to address all 3 learning outcomes. For example, here, right? I want to do a problem-based learning. So all 3 LOs, I have one follow-through or extended activity, right? So again, not necessarily that each LO you need to have pre-instructional, because how many times do you want to introduce the outcomes, or how many times you want to do the set induction and stuff like that, right? So you might, for one topic, you might just need to do one pre-instructional activity. And then it depends on how you want to present the content, how you want the learner to participate. All right, so this is our activity for this afternoon. Now, I want you to do this, like right now, to get an idea of how you can see the alignment between your learning outcomes, learning assessments, and learning activities. It is not as simple as it seems. It does require some critical analysis of your subject matter, and then how you want to assess. Now, learning assessment not necessarily means that you have to grade them. It can be assessment for learning. It can be a formative assessment. It can be a checkpoint for you to gauge whether the students are with you or not. Okay, so work on 2 topics, yeah, that you will be teaching in the first 2 weeks of next semester, and see how much you can plan using this matrix. All right, so I would like you to do this. You can do it here on my Google Sheet, and you can just copy, duplicate the sheet and change it to your name. And then do it here, or you can save it in your own Google Drive, okay? And then have a practice. I will be giving you 20 minutes for this activity until 3 o'clock. So come 3 o'clock, I would like to see what you have come up with, and then we can give each other feedback. Okay? So that's what we're going to do for the next 20 minutes. It's hands-on. So do this planning. And bear in mind that you are planning first for an online instruction, because we are not sure if we're going to do face-to-face at all, at least for the first 2 weeks. Okay, so bear in mind, it's online. Your learning activities are going to be online. Your assessment is going to be online. Okay? All right, so any questions as to the activity that you need to do? If you do not have any questions, please raise your hand. It's like counterintuitive, isn't it? If you don't have any questions, raise your hand. Like click the raise hand. Okay.
Doctor, I do have a request. Maybe you just want to project that example of yours so that it would be easier to refer to.
Okay. The example that I had earlier, right? But my example did not have the division between the four, you know, the pre-instruction and all that. It's all mashed up together.
Sure.
But at least it gives you an idea.
Yeah,
Okay, I will project that. Yes. Okay. So any more questions? Okay, if not, then get to work and I will check back with you at 3 o'clock and I will share my example. Okay. Right. Okay, this one. All right, it's 3 p.m. Now we're going to look at what you have done with the matrix and also what kind of, activities that you have planned for your classes next semester. I would like to call one person first to share what you have already done so that we can, together give feedback and see how much of an alignment that is visible when we do this learning design matrix activity. Anyone would like to volunteer? This is purely intrinsic motivation. I do not have any extrinsic rewards to give you, but it would help a lot, if you can share what you already have. Would anybody like to share first? What you have done? Or you're still working on it? Just shout out if you are ready to share, and then Umu will allow you to share your screen. If you're done with your matrix, can you just type into the chat box done, and then Umu will let me know like how many people are done and how many people need more time. Okay, so anyone done? Yes? No? Not yet. All right, Dr. Rose is done, my twin. Would you like to share first, Dr. Rose? Dr. Rose of UM. Is she there? Dr. Rose Noon? Are you there, my dear?
Oh, I can share.
Okay, awesome. My twin of the day. Okay. If you're ready, just let us know so that Umu can allow you to share the screen.
No one's ready. I think I just finished.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Perhaps do you guys need another 5 minutes to complete it?
Yeah.
I can give you more time.
I just finished mine.
Oh, you just finished mine. Okay. Dr. Lee Eileen, would you like to share yours?
I'm Clarissa. But same person.
Oh, Clarissa.
Okay.
Dr. Clarissa, yeah. Okay, sure.
How do I share my screen on Teams?
There is an icon on the top right hand corner. Do you see it? It's
Beside
like
the mic.
Share content.
yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Make sure I'm sharing the right thing.
Mhm.
Can you see my screen?
I think it's coming up. It's still black. Okay. Yeah, we can see
You can
it
see
now.
my screen? Because
Yeah.
I can't see what you see. Okay.
Yeah, we can see the Excel sheet. Yeah.
Okay. So you
Okay.
can see I put cost RIB 106, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, then you can see my screen.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I know exactly what I'm doing, and the follow through I haven't actually figured this part out. Largely because I'm trying to redesign the course from what it used to be.
Mhm.
Largely because it's also for online teaching, and also because in the past, as I mentioned, it's taught like as though the students are reading through an encyclopedia. One week chapter 1, next week chapter 2. I mean, it's a very easy way to teach it like that because it's very passive, but I'm not sure the students will get much out of that. And I just feel like I'm just downloading content to them. So the way I try to change it is to, even though it's still history,
Yeah.
and there are still learning outcomes I had to, is I try to make it more thematic so that the students, I feel, will be able to associate this course with other classes that they'll be taking. Because this is one of the few theory courses that they will take. Most of the other classes are very much practical. So, for instance, like instead of saying introduction to drama or Greek theater, right? This suddenly dumping students into deep end, especially since they are like straight probably from high school or foundation, right? Is I thought, okay, let's talk about drama as a history, because it's a history class, so history or drama as history for what context. The course is largely LO1. I noticed even in the pro forma that I was given. Even when they mentioned other stuff like LO5, LO7, it didn't really make sense to me. It's almost so I'm trying to reinterpret what is actually saying. That I kind of feel that the person who did the course probably went for OBE course, but really understand how they work and just kind of like dumped it to fulfill some kind of official requirement, but don't really believe in what they wrote down. So what I'm trying to do is reinterpret it to how it works. The course is very LO1, so I think the first few weeks will be heavy on LO1 because it's also a freshman required class, and it's actually, and it has been designed actually to be very content focused. But even then, I try to also make it practice relevant. So like in learning assessment is where I try to, for instance, since they are, well, whether they become performers or not, but since assuming, let's say they go into drama because they are learning a lot of stuff about being a performer in the major, regardless of what they do at the end, right? So I said, okay, then why not craft your philosophy as a performer, because it's a way of crafting their own philosophy as a learner as well. So that way, start very early on in their first year, you know, instead of waiting to the end, wonder what the hell have I been doing for the last 4 years, right? So, so I have assigned readings, and where, just like what you were suggesting, I think it's a good idea, reflective writing, because when I assign them an actual paper, they can actually draw on what they've already started. So it's like building work they have rather than, you know, getting all panicky at the end. Because that we are going to do this entirely online, we were told already in UM, and my head basically said there's no exams. Usually this class has an exam, but there's no exam. So she basically told me, do whatever you want for your final assessment. So I had to figure that out for the first time. No one can help me in that. So I haven't figured out how to do that, but I was thinking that instead of having, like, you know, one final assessment, but drawing from my previous teaching experience, where I have more handle in designing my class, is that the final exam itself, even though they still have a final exam, it draws on work they have creatively, they have accumulated over the weeks. So by the time they got to the exam, they already know what they're going to write for the exam, because I also crafted the exam in such a way that they can pick subjects, particular topics they're best at, without neglecting everything else. But it should give them some level of specialization, so it connects to what you were saying about follow through. So they can research further on a topic that's interesting to them, but they still have a handle on all the other stuff they need to know through the continuous assessment. So therefore, I actually wanted to do, starting from week 2 onwards, is to have students, depending on the number of students I have no idea how many yet, to either have students to lead discussions. So basically, but they will not be left to do it on their own, because one of the things I want them to do, then I think it went, okay, I think it's under learner assessment. I wanted them to create their own wiki. It's like building your own Wikipedia, but it's like your own notes, right? That you can always refer to again and again, and they can do it collaboratively. So learning assessment for me connects to follow through. I don't know whether this is the best way to do it, but I'm just trying to build everything together. And because one of the things required is lifelong learning, which I guess that means they have to be able to connect what they learn to everything else in the rest of their lives going forward. So I decided early on to link, like, say, okay, history or drama to social issues, so they can see how history, both social history and the dramatic history, actually connect. And I thought, you know, since students themselves love to go to Wikipedia to look up for stuff because it's a lazy way of doing things, right? Why not I force them to do their wiki with, like, teach them how to do citations and teach them how to verify whatever they write down. So it gives more work, you see. I'm not just like reading something, okay, I forgot what I just read, but in the process of doing wiki, you have to like re-examine what you just read and also confirm what you understand or do not understand. So that's what I do. This class, because of the way it's structured, it has very heavy in reading. I'm worried about that because I don't know about present generation of students, how much reading they can do. But it's structured very heavily, I mean, to have a lot of reading, so there's nothing I can change about that, right? Unless I teach a completely different course altogether. But I guess the way I try to do it is to have activities that can chunk up the reading, so that, you know, I will not like, I mean, when I was a grad student, I was asked to read an entire book a week, right? Just for one class. But I know I can't do this to freshmen, even though I know there's some freshmen who are subject to that in other universities. So what I'm trying to do is that even though I make them read very dense material, which is unavoidable, is to find ways in which they can, I guess, figure out how to build questions. I thought the wiki might be a way to do that, because they are not just writing, like, you know, what comes to mind, but in the process of writing, they also have to start organizing, and they also edit each other. So they're helping each other learn in the process. So yeah, so that's what I thought of for the first 2 weeks. I may not, because this is an experiment that I'm doing, so I might only prepare like 4 weeks in advance and see how it works. If it fails completely, then I have to change the way I do it again. So yeah, so it's for the freshman class that I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Clarissa. Preparing 4 weeks in advance is like very advanced already. We can prepare 1 week ahead of it. Excellent already. Well done. I like that, you know, you straight away on the get-go, from the get-go, you want to make it relevant to the real life and how this, this whole history of drama and all that can be applied through their philosophy as a performer. I love that. And then, getting them to do it in the first week would anchor the whole learning altogether for the whole semester. So that first activity that you have as your learning assessment is good. I love that, because that not only assesses their understanding of what the subject matter is, but rather really getting them to internalize what the subject matter is all about by, translating it into their own philosophy. So that's really wonderful. The second week, the second LO, if you can just scroll so that we can see the second LO. All right. You said that linking drama to social issues, meaning it's like a real life application of drama again. Look at your learning assessment, right? Now, there is sort of a misalignment there a little bit, because in your learning assessment, you want them to create a collaborative wiki on how practices, technologies, and beliefs influence dramatic production. So perhaps you can tweak that assessment a little bit to map to your learning outcome, which is linking drama to social issues. So yeah, the collaborative wiki is the tool, yeah, but rather, but then you have to redefine the assessment. Perhaps they have to explain or, find drama elements in real life social issues, something like that. And the way to do that is they create a wiki. So the forefront is the assessment of that learning outcome, and then the tool would come later. Okay, so what to assess and then how to assess is later. So it can be through wiki, or maybe other people would want to do it via, a short essay, not a collaborative essay, maybe an individual essay. So the forefront is assessing the outcome first, which is the linkage between drama and social issues. So that one is to be assessed. And then your activities are fine. In terms of your content presentation and also learner participation, it some of them can overlap. Like you said, the follow through is the wiki, right? You want to get them to research and you want to use that as an assessment. That is fine. That is perfectly fine, as long as you know which activity you're going to use to assess. So assessment also, what is the purpose of assessment? Are you going to assess them for learning, meaning it's a formative as an information to improve their learning and your teaching practices? Or is it going to be something that is, looking at their mastery, which is assessment of learning, meaning grading lah. So that one we have to be clear ourselves. But what you have done is great, it's wonderful. And I think it's workable and doable in an online environment. Yeah. So well done, Dr. Clarissa. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So I share, right?
Ya, Atok panggil. Kakak.
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Clarissa. Who else would like to share what they have done? Anybody else? Let's see. Are you all done? Anybody would like to share next? Let's get one more person and see how, this matrix help you somehow, because it gives a very good visualization now of how your classes are going to be like in the next semester. Yeah. Okay. Somebody's. Oh, Dr. Clarissa is still sharing your screen. Okay. Anybody else? Next, are you there? Hello. Okay. Let's get one more. Let's see. Should I pick or would you like to volunteer? Maybe I pick up. Okay, let's see. Let me pick somebody. What about just now my twin, Dr. Rosnun? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
How to share?
Okay, up there on the right.
On the
next,
right.
next to your microphone, okay?
Okay, microphone. Okay,
Check.
share.
Yeah, check on that.
Okay, and click my
I think screen.
continue submit. Okay, I will try.
Okay. Okay, something coming up. And then you just go to the screen that you want to share with us.
Slide.
At the top.
Sharing at the box. Just put at the box or
you can share your desktop. I think sharing
yeah,
desktop.
sharing desktop. Yes.
Mhm.
Sharing desktop.
Or you can also click the software, that specific screen that you want to share, and that will open up. So you don't have to share your entire desktop.
Mhm. I think Dr. Rosnun is gone. Oh no, when did she click? She probably accidentally left the meeting. Kan? Umu, is she gone? Yeah, Dr. Rosnun is gone. She might have clicked something and left.
Maybe someone else want to share first.
Kesian dia. Okay. Let me pick. I'm gonna pick. Let's see. Dr. Vinotini, are you there? Oh, there's like, oh. Or Dr. Zahir, are you there, Dr. Zahir? Or Dr.
Yeah,
Vinotini?
Rose, I'm here, but I'm actually in a meeting, so I'm actually in two interface.
Wow, okay, I've done that before, so don't worry.
So I'm actually listening to you while in the meeting.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Go ahead with your meeting. Dr. Zahir, are
Sorry
you there?
cikgu, saya tak buat homework.
Apa anak murid ni? Okay, who would like to share their what they have done so that we can get some feedback? Done? Let's see.
Okay, let me try. Okay.
Okay, sure. Okay, you're back. Yay.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Maybe you can put it a bit bigger. Good.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can read. All right, great.
Okay, it's just simple. My course is design template. It's just simple, only one topic. Just show one topic. Topic about greeting and introduce yourself because I teaching language. So the LO learning outcome only to use basic conversation to introduce yourself, and learning assessment only oral test. And for about the learning activities, and starting with the pre-instructional, I will try to use the micro credential because I have already one courses on the micro-credentials. Yeah. Okay. So next about contents presentation, we're speaking, listening, and vocabulary. And next about the learning participation, online participation, for example, using Zoom, Meet, or Clubhouse. Clubhouse is this new thing. So I will try to use this is Clubhouse. This is like podcast, but the this is a new application. And now just because Elon Musk using this, and he suggests just the Clubhouse, yeah. And the last about the follow through, I will using quiz, like normal simple quiz. Yes,
Okay.
that's all. Yeah,
What
just
language do you
simple.
teach? What language do you teach?
Thai language.
Thai language. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I like your learning outcome just now. Can you show your learning outcome? Just
Learning
scroll to the left a bit. Yeah, to the left a bit. Okay. Use basic conversation to introduce yourself. That's very clear. Meaning that you're going to use, the language that is, conversational to introduce yourself. So it's very clear, and then your learning assessment is also clear because you do oral tests. That aligns very, very well. Okay, so well done on that. Now on the learning activities, for the learner participation, the tools that you have mentioned, like Zoom and Meet and Clubhouse, those are the tools that you're going to use. The activity that you can do using this is that you can have maybe a group conversation. So that's the activity that you put under learner participation. Perhaps you can use like each student introduces themselves using different phrases, different ways that the Thai language has in order to introduce oneself. So that is okay. The Zoom and the Meet would be the tool that you
the tool. Okay, I see. Okay.
Right? You still need to mention the tool. However, it's after you explain what the activity is.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what the learner participation activity is going to be like. And then for the follow through, may I suggest instead of a quiz, maybe you can get the students to look for videos on YouTube maybe of Thai people, doing conversations or introducing themselves in Thai language. And, maybe get them to practice the intonation and all that as how Thai people would say it, because there's certain different intonations, right, between different languages. So to get them to apply what they have already learned using basic conversation in a real conversation. So that would be a better take on the follow through, because quizzes you can do for maybe vocabulary activity, right? But then the follow through meaning they really need to master that introduction using the Thai language.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much. Okay.
All right, you can stop sharing already.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have seen two examples of how your colleagues use the learning design matrix in planning for the lesson. So if you find it useful, okay, I'm going to reshare my screen. Okay, if you find it useful to use this matrix, please go ahead and do so. Okay, and you will see that sometimes it's not aligned. Sometimes you find like, hey, what am I doing actually? Which one can I use to assess? Because sometimes you don't even need a separate assessment tool for the for us to gauge whether the students have achieved the learning outcome or not. Sometimes you don't even need a separate quiz or a separate assignment altogether. You can just use whatever that you have planned in the learner participation part and in the follow-through part as your assessment. Okay. So I hope that all of you can somehow use this, if not if not literally using it, but at least have it aware in your minds of what needs to happen in the class. Okay, you all can download this and can save it and can use it for your own use, no problem. It's just a table, so nothing special about it. It's just a way of visualizing how our courses should flow, yeah, and also pay attention to the flow of the learning outcome, LO1, LO2, and LO3, how they should, scaffold upon one another. That tells the story. Okay. All right. Now,
Rosemaliza, sorry, can I just want to clarify, just a point of clarification? So
sure.
the one that you basically project to us where you teach active learning strategies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one topic, is that one lecture?
That one topic is 1 week, meaning I traditionally have 3 hours in a week with my students. So for them to master that topic of active learning, that is for 1 week of LO. Okay, I'm going to reshare it. Okay, it's easier to explain like that. Okay, wait, let me see. Where is it? Okay, so all of this happened in 1 week. Students do watch the video and then they document whatever such. It's just like a reflective writing, very short. And then come to the live session, they would discuss on the various active learning strategies and how each different LO can map to different active learning strategies. And then the post-live, you see, prepare lesson plan. Now that's the assessment that I'm going to use. They actually prepare a lesson plan that incorporates active learning strategies, and they just put it up on their e-portfolios. So this all happens in a week.
Okay, so that makes sense, but I just wanted to ask for those of us, for example, in my department, each lecturer are going to be assigned 1 or 2 lecture topics. So I'm just looking through, I was struggling a little bit just now to try to do this exercise because I looked through the learning objects or lecture outcome for each individual lectures, and I sometimes see that after the coordinators supplied us with all the LOs, sometimes one particular lecture has got up to like 10, 12 LOs, very specific. Okay. So I have issues. Number one is that when you say it must flow very well, it's most of the LOs are just listing what the students are expected to, the knowledge that they're expected to achieve from that particular lecture. So it's a bit dry. And then number 2 is that it's not a block of topic that we can actually have, teach for one particular week. It's more like one session and that's it. So to have all these elements of pre-instructional, content presentations, learners' participations, just for one particular lecture with a lot of list of LOs, I don't know how this would work. If you've got some suggestions, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay, this is in the medical faculty, is it?
Yes. So there will be, in medical faculty, there will be many different courses within the program. So one of the courses, there would be, like, for example, I'm looking at these lecture series for the dental students. We also teach dental students. There are 65 lectures within the course that we're teaching that is incorporated into the first year of the dental dentistry. So all of us are only given, for example, the responsibility to be in charge of a number of lectures. So it's very isolated. It's not thematic in a sense that you have like a week to work with, and the learning outcomes are not integrated according to the system or the themes. It is actually each individual lectures have got their own list, and it can be a lengthy list. So that's why it's a little bit of a struggle. I was a bit confused whether the learning, the LO here is referring to that particular lecture topics LO, or is it the course learning outcomes, which is a little bit more truncated, only 3 or 4, right, for the courses. So yeah, so it's just wanting to know how this matrix would work for that, one isolated lecture for an hour, for example, whether we have to actually fill all this in.
Okay, understand. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing. If I understand it correctly, you would have, it's almost like a guest lecture kind of model, isn't it? Like each expert would come in and give your lecture based on that particular very focused subject area, and then the next week another expert will come in. Is that how it works?
Actually, it's not even, I mean, we are considered as mobile unit where you can just teach any system, any topic. So it will change from day to day, or from weeks to weeks. So sometimes we are within a week, there will be 3 or 4 lecturers will be involved. And sometimes, so it depends on the number of lectures that is going to be assigned to us, but usually it's ad hoc basis in the sense that we should be able to teach any topics related to the area that we are actually, in, which is we are teaching physiology. So any parts of the system, and in physiology, we should be able to take out that topics as and when it's needed.
Okay, got it. My suggestion would be, I do that matrix even for a 1 hour lecture. So in the 1 hour lecture, right, I'll share again. In a 1 hour lecture, this still remains, okay? All must go on. It's just that in terms of your learning assessment, assessment is just actually for you to gauge where the students are. Are they getting what you are trying to tell them? So in that 1 hour of lecture, let's say you mentioned that you have got like a long list of LOs, let's say 5 LOs for that 1 hour lecture. Now, I've not seen what your LOs look like, but I would assume that they are very much content related, that students should know this should know. I think it is at the level of, if you consider Bloom's taxonomy, it's one of the lower levels of cognition, which is maybe to know or to understand, okay? Because to go right up to create or to be able to analyze would take a longer time to process all of this information. So my suggestion to you would be, for that 1 hour that you have this matrix in mind, to avoid from one-way knowledge dissemination, which means you have the content presentation part, you have the pre-instructional part, you bring them to their prior learning, prior knowledge, okay? Because that is what is meant by pre-instructional, remember? Gain attention and inform students of objectives and stimulate recall of prior learning. So the elements are still there, even though the lectures are isolated. Okay, because I'm going to treat this like I treat my 1 or 2 hour, guest invitational kind of sessions. Okay, so I do have to gain your attention. I do have to inform you of the objectives. I do have to bring you to some sort of prior learning that you already have. Okay, so that's where your instructional come in. And then we can present the content of your physiology, your the anatomy and stuff like that, whatever your topic is. So present the content based on the specified LO, which I assume are all knowledge based, like students should know. And then when it comes to learner participation, how do you get them to participate? So now in the online context, you can always have mini quizzes for them to participate in, to like answer, like how you answered just now. It doesn't have to be during the lecture, because maybe that 1 hour is really precious for you to disseminate all the LOs that have been listed. So the learner participation part can come after the lecture, in which they would have activities that they need to do. For example, doing reflective writing, answering quizzes, reading a certain article. So that is learner participation. Learner participation means they interact with the content. All right. And then for you, maybe the follow through would probably look at cases, looking at the studies that have been done. So these are what you can do in order to address the isolated lectures that you might have for the medical faculty, right? You do not have to, in terms of the flow of the LOs, I'm sure that all the LOs that you have for each time that you have a lecture are connected to each other somehow. You just need to figure out the arrangement so that it at least does not seem very choppy when you are doing your presentation, when you're doing your lecture. All right. And in terms of learning assessment as well, you can use the activities that you have designed for them in learner participation. You do not have to create a different assessment tool in order to gauge their learning outcome achievement. You can just use, like just now, the reflective writing or the case study, answering questions or the quizzes. You can use that to check off those learning outcomes that needed to be achieved by the students. So does that help, Dr. Raja?
Yes, thank you very much. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, any other questions from the floor? Okay, no question. Now, I would like to go into something that I believe is helpful for you. Yeah, let me just open, okay, and share. Okay. Now, I did this workshop called the Minimalist Approach to Teaching and Learning. This particular piece of information that I'm going to share with you helped me a lot when we moved entirely online, okay? I learned this in a course called the Virtual Learncaster, and what they taught me in there is that we as teachers or as lecturers, we actually play different roles at different times. And these roles were very seamlessly played when we do instruction face-to-face, when we are there live with our students. But when we are online, we do need to know exactly which role we are playing so that we can better design our learning materials. The first role is the instructor, second is facilitator, and third is the sage. Okay, and the icons that I used reflect who these people are. So the first one, as an instructor, Instructor is somebody who gives instruction. The material that we present as instructor must be followed by the students to the very detail, to the very letter. Yeah, it's probably explaining a certain process, a certain procedure, mathematical formulas, coding lines. So it's very, very detailed that the students must follow. If you don't follow, that means you're already ajaran sesat lah. You are lost with that particular content. So as an instructor, when we prepare our materials, those materials need to have detailed explanation. Yeah, the voice and the audio must be clear. The pronunciation must be clear. The language used must be clear and free of grammatical errors, for example. For videos, if we were to do videos on something that students have to follow to the very detail, it is best to have captions so that it does not get lost in translation. And then there must be visuals, just like, you know, when we buy furniture from IKEA, they give you visuals so that it reaches a global audience. So we need to know our audience as well. And then provide detailed references that students can go back to, you know, like your textbooks or the articles that they need to read, any websites that they can use to refer to. And for these instructions, it is best to be done asynchronously, which means we have pre-recorded videos, or we have got a set of slides that they can go through on their own instruction, step by step. Because if you were to do it live, it would probably take up the lecture time because of the detailed explanation. Yeah, you can discuss about this particular piece of knowledge that is very detailed as a facilitator, which is the next role. But as an instructor, this is what you need to do, especially when you want to prepare your learning materials. Okay. The second role, the facilitator role, this is where we guide learning. The learning has to come from the students. We no longer instruct, but rather we prepare the environment for them to get the learning out themselves. How do we do this? We have to prepare questions for discussion, and we have to prepare stimulus that encourage participation. Use attractive stimulus, use, you know, intriguing videos, thought-provoking articles that would make them want to participate. Refrain from giving information and get students from their own learning. Now, this can be done in a live session, in a, you know, in your synchronous session, because it requires a lot of discussion, a lot of, you know, idea sharing and all that. So it's best to have it synchronously. Okay, this is the facilitator role. The next role is your sage role. Sage is the person who sparks curiosity. Yeah, this is the person that we can listen to for hours and hours because they're very motivating, the storytell. And sometimes they do not even need visual aids because they are engaging on their own. Okay, and it can be done in both synchronous and asynchronous environments. So we are all these three. We are all these three. We are all instructor, facilitator, and sage. But in an online environment, we need to be explicit. When do I want to play the instructor role? When do I want to play the facilitator role? And when do I turn into a sage? Remember, our first exercise this morning, the word study was not clear. So we have to avoid all assumptions. Yeah, we have to be very, very clear of what we are presenting and what we want from the students. Do we want them to come up with the learning themselves, to be able to be critical about certain things and then, you know, presenting their own ideas? Or do we want them to follow the instructions carefully? Do we want them to follow certain formulas? Do we want them to follow certain grammatical rules? So those roles need to be clear when we decide on the learning materials that we're going to use. Okay. And then we also need to minimize our tools. When we do online classes, as much as possible, do minimize the use of technology, which is very ironic, right? Because we were supposed to use technology, and then I'm saying use less as much as possible, because less is more. When you do not need to go out of the video conferencing application, you don't have to. For today, it was a very special case. Like I said, you know, I'm in a love-hate relationship with Microsoft Teams, so I had to go out. I had to use Padlet, I had to use Google Documents and all that, because Teams is not allowing me the flexibility to be just in Teams and do all of these activities. I have done workshops, 2-3 hour workshops without having going out of Zoom at all. I use their annotating function, I use their breakout rooms, I use their polling. They have a polling option. So I didn't have to use quizzes or anything like that. So I just use whatever is in there, right? So your tech tools that you choose must be easy to use, must be reliable, accessible for both you and the students, must be aligned with learning objectives, and it saves time. Saving time is like, you know, the laundry management just now. Instead of using a video recording, just do it live. Saves time, and it gets to where you need to go. Get there the fastest route possible, okay? Because we want to save our time. The faster the student gets the learning outcome, the better it is, because we can move on to the next one, because you might need more time for the next learning outcome. You'll never know. So save time as much as possible, okay? So that is another tip, minimize tech tools. Now, another tip, when we talk about designing our lessons, we need to organize our lesson flow. This also I learned in the virtual Learncaster program. We can divide our lesson into 3 phases. Yeah, I think you've seen this in my lesson plan just now, in my matrix just now. There is a pre-live, there is live, there is post-live. Post-live, you're still alive, but it's just after the live session. So pre-live, before we enter any live session or any synchronous sessions, we can build rapport and spark curiosity. This is where you can do your pre-instructional activities in pre-live, okay? It actually just needs to prepare the students for the heavy content that's coming their way. So I think just now in the medical example, when you have isolated lectures and all that, if you're on LMS, right, on a learning management system, you can have some sort of an engagement activity prior to the lecture. A very short activity that the students can do it in minutes. Answer a certain question, answer a certain quiz, or watch a certain video that would be related to the lecture that is coming the next day or the next week. Yeah, so I'm not sure how UM's LMS works. Perhaps all of the lecturers who are in that, who are involved in that particular course would be in the same LMS, and you can have a section for that, for the pre-instruction activity. Post it there and get the students to interact with it, answer the question, watch the video, give comments, blah, blah, blah. Now, when you come to the lecture, then they have already engaged with you prior to the lecture from that activity, right? And then you have your lecture, your live, your 1 hour session. And then after that, immediately after the lecture, they have some simple and doable activities in the post-live session where, like again, the simplest would be give them, you know, like a 4 or 5 quiz question. If you have 5 LOs, 5 questions for each LO, which they can just quickly click or write, you know, a certain report on a certain case that is related to the lecture. So very short and doable activities that they can finish in a very short period of time. That doesn't require too much, you know, research or very lengthy time for them to complete it. Because you want to keep the motivation to learn. That's the whole point. Okay. It is sad that today's generation is, you know, what instant gratification. Everything needs to be instantaneous. You're hungry, you just click an app and then the food is there. So there is no room for waiting in this age, which is very sad because yeah, they're missing a lot. No problem. But the point is to close the loop, to close the whole learning cycle with something that they can, you know, fall back on in terms of feedback, whether they have already learned it or not. So it is information for both you and also the student. Okay, there must be a closure. So this is a tip that I can give you. You can divide your lesson into 3. Pre-live, live, and post-live. Pre-live, you can have your pre-instruction. Live, you can have your content presentation and learner participation. Post-live, you can have your assessment, you can have your follow-through. Okay, this is another way of looking at it. All right. This is one tip. Keep it short, simple, and engaging. KISSed. Okay. Short, simple, engaging. And then move on to the next topic. Keep it short, simple, engaging, move on to the next topic. Yeah. Short and simple doesn't mean easy and does not mean that we leave out important points. We don't, we just make it concise. Elaborate content, they can read on their own because it's at the fingertips, but we lead them to what they need to read. Okay. Okay, now I'm coming to assessment already. Before that, I will pause a bit to make room for any questions. Any questions? We're coming to the last hour of the program.
I'm just wondering whether you can show the SAGE part again, because I'm trying to figure out how different the SAGE is from the instructor. I mean, technically you can be a SAGE instructor at the same time, right? Okay.
SAGE, hang on, I will share it again.
Also thinking it could also be part of a facilitator as well, because I suppose as a facilitator, you're supposed to spark curiosity in the process.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very thin line. That's why I mentioned when we are in the classroom, right? It's seamless that we play all this all the time. But instructor is pretty clear. Instruct means this is like the art teacher, the math teacher, the science who does experiments in the lab. These are all very rigid knowledge. You have to follow coding. You have to follow the lines of codes. Okay. Facilitator is more on, okay, these are the facts of active learning strategy, blah, 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 blah. Should I use active learning strategy in, you know, how do I control my students in an active learning class when they are primary schoolers? How do I control them? So they would be giving ideas and all that, of course, based on reading assignments that they have already been given. So they are supposed to come up with those solutions. We just facilitate the discussion without giving information. As opposed to an instructor, we give everything because they need to know it. It's no two way about it, right? But for facilitator, there are different ways of doing things, why we need to reason and all that. Stage is, you know, that professor who we just listen, motivated. When we listen to this person, oh, okay, I want to know more. Okay, they might be telling real life applications, real life stories. Perhaps people who are in the medical field, they tell their experiences in the, in the emergency, for example, without actually going into the particular topic yet. So this is more of a pre-instructional kind of role that we play. Yeah, it's just storytelling, sharing of life experiences, what is going on out there, telling us about, what mistakes we did before and all that. And then you can go into the instruction. Okay, now this is how you do. And then you can go to facilitation mode, where we get the learner to draw the learning themselves. So I know it's kind of a thin line between all the three roles, but if you really look at it and analyze it properly, that's where it really affects how you design your learning materials. Okay, and like I said, for instructor, it has to be all this, must be very clear. Do not leave room for guessing and all that. And as a facilitator, you need to prepare questions. As a sage, it's usually one way. You don't even require learner participation. You just want them to listen to you. That's all. Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Krista. Okay. So we're coming to the last part of this session, which I'm going to talk about assessment. Okay. Then give me a couple of minutes for a breather, which I'm going to get you to watch a little bit of video by Sugata Mitra. You all know who Sugata Mitra is? He did the experiment, the hole in the box. And this was way back at the beginning of the 21st century, that sparked the whole online learning thing. So I'm going to play this video. It is available on your Padlet, but I'll just play it so that we can, I hope the internet is kind to us and let us watch this together. Okay.
Well, good afternoon. Herb has given me only 15 minutes, which is making me very anxious.
Okay, you can see the video and you can hear it, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent.
I put my last slide first. Okay, this is the last slide of the presentation. And it talks about doing 4 things that we need to do to education today. Introduce the internet, introduce something called complex dynamical systems, divide the existing curriculum into 3 parts, and allow the internet during examinations. And what I'm going to talk about for the rest of my time is why I'm saying that. The story goes back a long way to about 20 years ago to an experiment called the hole in the wall, which was actually a very simple experiment. Those were the days when computers were relatively rare. So there were many children, particularly poor children, who had never seen a computer before or never heard of the internet. The experiment was to confront them with this device and then just see what happens. People thought that they would need to be taught, but this didn't happen. This experiment was done in New Delhi in 1999, and the children began surfing in English within a few hours. So everybody wanted to know who is teaching them. Now, my background is not social science. I'm actually a theoretical physicist by training. So I had no idea how to, how these things are done. How do you study this? So this is the best I could think of. Which didn't get me very far. Because they were just, the children were just being children around the computer. But I did notice one thing very curious. Every time a grown-up character landed up there, they stopped doing everything. So I learned my first lesson in education, that the absence of a teacher could be a pedagogical factor to assist learning. Okay. I was asked to repeat this experiment many times by the World Bank to prove that this actually happens without teachers. They learn about the internet without teachers. Everybody knows that now. You've seen 2-year-olds with iPads, but it wasn't known then. This is what it used to look like, those experiments in villages and the countryside. There's something there that I didn't notice at that time. The children would buzz around the computers like insects. And there would be a buzzing noise. And then something wonderful would happen. Somebody would download a program from somewhere and install it and change the Windows registry or something simple like that. But they were children and they didn't know the language. So we didn't know what was going on. But I did publish this because I was able to prove it that children can learn to use the internet by themselves, provided, and this is very important, they're unsupervised, they're in heterogeneous groups, boys and girls, different ages, and they access the internet through a large visible screen in a safe and public place, not little devices. If those conditions are met, groups of children seem to be able to learn things by themselves. Learn what? I brought this back to Gateshead. And the teachers of Gateshead, particularly my friend Emma Hudson from one of the schools just down the road, said, let's do the hole-in-the-wall experiment in England. And I said, no, I won't do that. So she said, why not? And I said, you can't do the hole-in-the-wall experiment in England because all you'll get are frozen children. You can't do anything outdoors out here. So I designed, but anyway, she persisted and I said, okay, we'll do it. We'll turn it inside out. It's really simple to do. Take a classroom, any old classroom, put in 4 or 5 big screens with the internet on it, bring in about 20 children and ask them a question. And they sort of brush around. You hear the same buzzing sound of the hole in the wall, and then the answer pops up. You can make the questions harder and harder, and they keep answering them. We called it a self-organized learning environment, or a soul. Soul spread out of here, out of Gateshead, into every continent on the planet. Here's what it looks like.
Controls the neck part. The neck part then controls the right. How the iPod and iPad can figure out where you are. The world
was Paul Cézanne. Cézanne was his second name and Paul was his first name. These paintings he made them 3-dimensional, so that was achieved by the front being lighter than the back of the painting. So that showed 3-dimensional.
Let's just look at this question one more time.
So you get the idea. After several years of making the questions harder and harder and harder, I came to this conclusion. It's very hard for a teacher to write that. Children in self-organized learning environments can learn anything by themselves. Anything. Provided you follow those four principles. Heterogeneous, unsupervised groups, the internet on big, safe public screens. What do I mean by anything? Well, back here in Gateshead, there's a school called St. Aidan's on Derwentwater Road. I took 9-year-olds and I asked them, can anything be in two places at the same time? And they said, 2 places at the same time? No. So I said, go on, take a look. It took them only about 15 minutes to come back and they said, Sugata, have you heard of quantum entanglement? You know, that's what it was. And again, I published all this. And people said, but how? I mean, how does it happen? I still didn't have an answer, except that it happens under those circumstances. The whole process is helped by one more thing. I said unsupervised, but you could be around and you could say to the children, fantastic, how did you do that? That is really great. I gave this method a name. I called it the method of the grandmother. You know, the stereotypical grandmother, the way she says, oh, wow, how did you do that? You're really clever. And the, and the child says, that's nothing. Let me show you something else. Okay. I wrote an article in the Guardian newspaper saying, if you have an internet connection, if you have an interest in children, and if you have a web camera, can you give me 1 hour of your time every week for free? And I got hundreds. And I explained to them, you must use the method of the grandmother. You can be male, female, young, old, whatever, but use the method of the grandmother. So they gave themselves a name. They still exist today, 600 or 700 of them. The granny cloud. So now I can beam the stereotypical grandmother wherever I want.
As fast as you can.
They're 5,000 miles apart.
You can't catch me. You say it. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. Well done. Very good. So again.
So you get the idea there. Actually, that session ended with the children saying, and what on earth is gingerbread, by the way? So back in 2013, I got this prize. It's called the TED Prize. And, you know, it's a lot of money, $1 million. So as you might imagine, I felt rather happy when I got it. I was going to call my bank down the road and say, you know, the days of 3-digit numbers are over. But Ted said, that's not how it works. We'll give the money to your university and you do a research project with it. So I designed a research project. We will bring 2 ideas together, self-organized learning environment and the granny cloud, put them into one single facility. We will call it the school in the cloud. You can build them inside schools, you can build them in the community, and over the next 4 or 5 years, I built many of them. Just a quick view from the remotest places on the planet. This is from the Ganges Delta in the Sundarbans to middle-class India, Western India, the Punjab up north, Killingworth just down the road, Harlem. You know, I find it funny that people find different places exotic depending on where I'm speaking. In India, they would go, gosh, Killingworth. And finally got a model of how to build these, what's the cheapest, what to put inside them, what kind of computers, and so on. So 20 years of work resulted in 3 graphs. The first one says that children can learn to use any device by themselves. So when your self-driving cars arrive and your 16-year-old wants one, you don't have to send him to a training course. Just give him the keys. The second one says that if you allow children to search on the internet using those 4 conditions, they become better and better at it. They learn how to search for the right things, leave out the wrong stuff, and so on. And the third, on the top right-hand corner, is a bonus. Over the years, their reading comprehension in whatever language they're searching in goes up dramatically, as though an invisible teacher was doing a really good job of it. So, if you have children who can use any device, can search the net accurately and correctly, and can read and understand, what else do you need? Is that what we're looking at as the next step in what we call school? So, what should the teacher do? Well, in a future which you cannot imagine, I mean, for those of you who have children, how are you going to prepare your child for 20 years from now? No idea what they might encounter. Ask them to go there, and the teacher says, you go there, I'll go with you. That's about all you can do when you confront children with the internet. A teacher is a friend on this journey. But there are several problems. Assessment. I mean, here's what exams look like. And exams prepare people for the office that you see on the right. The only problem is that office is from 1910. So everyone in the right side of this picture, they're all dead. So your children are being prepared for them. Okay. You need to have an assessment system which prepares them for the real world. Just look at that. Isn't it quite obvious what the assessment system should look like? All our education is just in case. Think about it. Everyone in this room has been taught at some stage or the other how to solve a quadratic equation. Okay. Why? Because when you leave this hall, what if you confront a ferocious quadratic equation? And using the knowledge so you see what I mean? So why would you, if you ever did meet a quadratic equation, all you have to say is, Alexa, can you help this? Can you do something about this? You know? So we need to change to just in time for problems that we cannot even imagine. We've all done the left-hand side. Luckily, the children of Gateshead are doing the right-hand side. So we need to prepare children to learn just in time instead of just in case, for a future where what we need to know is not quite evident anymore. This was my last slide, as I promised. So introduce the internet as a formal subject in school. You know why? Because the internet dominates our lives 24/7. If I asked how many people here use WhatsApp, everybody will raise their hands. If I asked you, how does it work? What happens to the message when you type it in? To the same person, I could say, do you know how a steam engine works? And they will probably say, yeah, more or less. Okay, we've got a problem there. So we must put the internet as a subject like physics or chemistry. How does it work? What is it made up of? Who owns it? Etc. You can't teach it. It moves too fast. It changes too fast. You can learn it by yourselves. And that's what my whole method is all about. The internet itself depends on a subject which all our children are going to need. The role that physics had in the 20th century will be taken over, is being taken over by this subject called complex dynamical systems. It means when you send a tweet, 100 people read it, their tweets change, their changed tweets change as you, etc. And it goes and swirls like that until you get spontaneous order. That's what we saw in that buzzing noise of the hole in the wall. Complex dynamical systems. We need to divide the curriculum into 3 parts. First part, the stuff that is necessary for life. Okay, not steam engines, and definitely not quadratic equations. Okay, maybe I'm being unfair. But the second part, things that you feel good to know. What is the solar system? How many planets are there? Why are they there? Which ones spin? Could there be life out there? This stuff is good to know. That's the second part. And then there's the third part, which is that part of the curriculum which might come in the exam. We have to teach our children how to do that third part as well, memorize it well, and learn to forget it after the exam. And the last bit, allow the use of the internet during examinations. It's obvious. We use the internet 24/7. Whenever you have a question, you pull out the internet from your pocket and you ask. But when it comes to our children, we don't allow it inside their schools. Because we have something called, we believe in something called to really know. I don't know what to really know means. But I do know one thing, that we don't need people who can tell the time without looking at their watch. Okay, if you see what I mean. So I don't see why we need children who can do everything without the internet in the exam hall. If we can do these four things, I think hidden inside there somewhere is the future of learning. And it's coming out of right here from Gateside. Thank you.
All right, so that was entertainment for you. Yeah, so from Sugata Mitra's talk, what was it that the message that is relevant to us today? Anybody would like to try? What is the one thing that's relevant to us today? That talk was in 2018, not too long before the pandemic, and his research was in the year 2000. So, 20 years is actually not a very long time, but so much has changed. And with the pandemic today, whatever that Sugata Mitra has learned should have been practiced a long time ago, especially in higher education. Look at the context of higher education. People are generally inquisitive. People were born to learn, right? But somehow or other, we have taken away that nature, that natural learning instinct from our students, from our learners. So who are we left with? We are left with people who are so dependent upon us that we need to plan every single thing beautifully with the hope that they will learn something, when in fact, naturally, they should be able to do self-regulated learning, self-directed learning. We just need to give them that empowerment back, right? For them to be able to motivate themselves in learning and also to master the content that we are going to give them, because they are there by choice. They are there in the class by choice. And one thing interesting to me about what Sugata has said was the inclusion of internet in assessments. Now, of course, he's talking about schools, but now in the university, open book assessments and all that, with the pandemic, it has become, an essential, I suppose. So now let's look at this part of assessment. Okay, that's the last bit that I would like to share with you. Okay, so when we talk about assessment, there are challenges when we want to design the tools because of, number one, there are too many tools. Number two, there are missing non-verbal cues, we'll talk about this, and lack of community. So these are the challenges when we want to redesign or relook at assessment in our course development. Yeah. The first challenge, there are too many tools. Now we have answered this previously when we talk about minimizing technology tools. We have to focus on the assessment, not the tool. Focus on the activity, not the tool. Okay? It is okay for us to just stick to one or two familiar tools without having to explore too many out there. That might just be too overwhelming for both the instructor and the students. Focus on the assessment, design the assessment first, and then choose the tool that would support it. And make sure the tools are, like we have learned previously, they're easy to use, reliable, accessible, align with learning objectives, and saves time, right? So that's how we solve problem number 1. Problem number 2, missing non-verbal cues. This is the inability to read body language to gauge learning and understanding, and there's a lack in real-time feedback through student reactions. Means we are not there, we don't know how the students are receiving this, what's their attitude. There was one student last semester, he came to me and he said, you know, madam, there's this one class, the lecturer, I cannot follow him, he's going too fast, I just give up on the whole entire software, I don't want to learn it anymore. And then I asked him, did you tell your lecturer this? And then he said, no, I did not. And I said, why? Because he said the rest of the classmates were able to follow the lecturer and they were all very active in the class except for him. He was missing, he was lost. How do we catch these people as a lecturer? Yeah. The trick is to assess all the time on the side. So I'm going to bring out my annotating tool. I cannot annotate, but never mind. Assess all the time. Assess from the beginning, have frequent checkpoints. That's what the learning assessment is all about. It's for us to check where our students are. Are they with us or not? Are they missing? Are they with us and pretty much advanced? Are they bored with our teaching because we're going too slow? We need to have frequent checkpoints. We can no longer depend on that midterm that we wait for in the middle of the semester. We can no longer wait for that project to be completed that we know whether the students are there or not. We have to check all the time. Sometimes during the lecture like this, you need to give certain questions that they can answer in the chat box, see where they are, whether they're still there with you or whether they are lost. Yeah, assess all the time. And finally, the challenge is lack of community. The missing social element, missing the elements of membership, sense of personal connection, student influence in the community. Everybody is disconnected from one another, therefore there's no learning community happening, which gives a lot of impact to how the students learn, right? How do we overcome that? We incorporate group work into the assessment. You can use collaborative tools. Teachers are an integral part to the community, meaning we have to be present, we have to give feedback, we have to give ideas, we have to tell them that, yes, good, you have done this well, or we have to tell them that you're not there yet, you need to improve this and that. So that's how we rethink about assessment and how we redesign it. And learning from Sugata, it is okay for them to collaborate in an assessment. It's okay for them to have open books and all this. It's just that we really need to relearn how to write our assessment questions or exams. Okay, so this is how assessment is to be re-looked upon. I know there are a lot of workshops on assessment. I myself am not, I don't consider myself an assessment expert, but I look at assessment as part of the teaching and learning process. I use this to inform whether my teaching is being received well by my students or otherwise. That's how I use assessment. All right. And yeah, that's what I have to share about how we want to redesign our assessment and incorporate it as part of the teaching and learning process. Okay. Let me just, again, I'm confused with all my screens. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a short while. I'm going to leave this time for any comments or any feedback before I wrap up the day, because it's already 4:30. So any discussions and any, clarifications, any sharing that you would like to do, I would like to learn from you. What are the strategies that you have used before this that might have helped in, relooking how we should do all of this online teaching things and how should we redesign our courses. The floor is yours.
I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Clarissa.
Yeah, sorry if I'm not taking anybody else's time. This has to do with assessment. And it has to do with, let's say, in the future when we go back to, examination method assessment. I know that's kind of like a big thing in Malaysian education system, and it's not something that I can just jettison, right? Just like that, unless I, redesign an entire course from scratch. So one of the things I'm actually thinking about, because it's also taken from my own experience, because I don't examine well myself. I mean, there are certain forms of examination methods that work well with me, but some that don't work well with me. And I know this is the same with a lot of the students. And sometimes we also teach students with learning disabilities as well. And time-based assessment is horrible on them. I have a student once who actually has he's high-performing autist. But there was no arrangement in the university to help someone like him. So I don't know, I guess I'm not sure whether in the Malaysian context, because I know, let's say in the US, where I train, it's possible for you to give a sort of like a request for the student to take a non-time-based assessment, right? So they are not pressured by time because they have certain disabilities. So that's one thing. And secondly, I'm just wondering I don't know how open book exams, how allowed are they in Malaysia. I guess maybe that's up to the lecturer to do that. It's something that I actually like doing, because I thought that could actually focus more on, I mean, I was never able to do that because the last time I tried to implement this, I was told I'm not allowed to do it, right? It's like to get the students to focus more on what matters rather than memorizing facts, that they'll forget, just like what Sugita says. And it's actually very interesting because, as somebody with PhDs talking to high-level researchers, right, one of the things they tell me, even physicists like Sugita, it's like, when we do our PhD, if we decide not to go into academia, we just forget everything we learned. But the one thing we never forget are the skills we acquired, as well as the way we learn how to learn. And we apply that to any high-level jobs that we take on. So we have a lot of people who are at the cutting edge of technological development in the world, who probably cannot remember anything you learned from first year of graduate school, and these are pretty smart students going on to PhDs, but they are actually in charge of developing technologies that we are using today, which basically brings back to the point how pointless exams are. I know exams are useful for testing how people perform under pressure, but outside of that, I'm not entirely sure how much more useful it is. And coming from the exam-based system, one thing I learned, especially teaching freshmen, which is what I'm going to do, is, and this is one thing we have been told, I've been told this even by my friends and colleagues from other parts of the world, is that the first thing you need to do is to tell the students that everything they've ever learned in high school or in primary school are all wrong, and they have to start everything from scratch again, right? Basically unlearn what they've learned and then relearn. But the problem is, along the way, we probably give them more bad habits on learning as well, you know, because not every lecturer is trained to teach well, and most don't care anyway. I know I'm actually a product of both good teaching and horrible teaching, so I know what both actually look like. So yeah, I guess this is part, I guess, question and part comment. I guess my question is how, within the limitations of the system that doesn't allow us a lot of room to maneuver, is that how can we design assessments that will work well for the students? You know, one of the best compliment I had from one of the classes I taught my first year out teaching was when a student told me that, you know, whatever they learned in the class, they can now use it, you know, as wedding dinner conversation material, right? And this is an elective, it's not even a core subject. I said, well, that's cool, you have something to talk about wedding dinners, right? Which basically means that this is something that, even though it may not necessarily have a direct impact on their lives very immediately, but it has enough impact that it can be a social conversation, right? And they thought of this themselves, you know, I didn't tell them they can do that. So I'm just wondering how that material can transform from being, okay, let's forget this once the exam is over, to being something that, oh, you know, 20 years down the line, I think I learned this before, and I think this might be useful for today. So I'm drawing this from my own experience and experiences of what students told me as well in their learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, so how to design good assessment in a very exam-oriented sort of system, because we said 40% marks allocated to exams.
Well, thank you, Dr. Clarissa, for sharing. That's a very interesting story that you shared with us based on your own experience. First, about the, you know, addressing the needs of students who are with, you know, learning disabilities or certain special needs that we need to cater to. Our experience in UIA, we have established a disabilities unit, the OKU unit. They do take care of all of these matters, you know, whether to have exams that are not time-based to give more flexibility, even the location sometimes is not accessible for certain students, you know, all kinds of special needs. So in UIA, we do have that unit, and they do address, which means there is flexibility in taking exams for them. So I am not sure if has it already, the disabilities unit. Maybe you can check with, I don't know if ADAC has information on that, but yes, we do have that in UIA. So our students are supposed to declare if they have certain disabilities that we need to pay attention to, be it physical, be it you know, any learning disabilities that needs special attention and special arrangement. For myself, I have not set any exams or any questions for special needs students, but my colleagues did have. So they do have that flexibility in terms of the time, right? The duration of them, because they do need more time. That's for the first question. So I would suggest if you can go and check with your university if they already have some sort of a disability policy, because last 2 years I remember we worked on the open educational resources. Dr. Zahir, were you there? I think you were there also, right? In that committee. I know he's there listening to me or he's doing something else. But we did.
Yeah.
Were you there in the disabilities for UNESCO punya committee? Were you there?
Oh, I was briefly there, but then I did not get any invitations to go further.
Okay. I think Dr.
Role.
Hey,
already. Yeah, I was there. UNESCO, OER,
yes.
Sort of work group with you.
Yeah. So, but I'm not sure if has already established the disabilities policy. Do you have information, Dr. Farah?
We have that.
Yes.
We have that.
Okay. So maybe Dr. Clarissa, you can chat with ADAC on that. Yeah. Thank you. So I didn't see you in the morning, Dr. Farah. So hi.
Hi.
Yeah, and for your second question about having open book kind of assessment, I believe COVID-19 is some sort of a blessing in a way for advocates of educational revolution. Okay, why I'm saying this is people who fight for education systems to change have been fighting for so long, and then COVID hit. And then everybody was like, oh no, we should have done that before. That goes the same to open book exams, no examinations. We managed to get rid of UPSR at least last year, and I heard that they're probably going to get rid of it again this year. For the higher education, now we see a lot of changes in acceptance towards open book examinations and also alternative assessment, authentic assessment. It is sort of a blessing in a way that has happened to us. The challenge with that is in setting the questions. Yeah, for open book exams, we have to be careful not to design questions which the answers can straight away be found in the book. Because why? For obvious reasons. Of course, number one, we don't want them to just take literally what is written in the book. Number two, it's going to take time because students expect to find the answers in the book, and they will flip through the pages and all that, and it takes time for them to answer. But if we design the questions such that they need to give critical reviews, they need to be able to come up with solutions for a certain problem, that can be open book. Because in actual fact, they don't need the book in the first place. They need themselves to be knowledgeable. Knowledgeable means not memorizing, but rather have got all the facts and the theories and the models there somewhere. They can refer. It's just like referring to a formula for additional mathematics, right? For maths, you can be given a cheat sheet for your formulas. You just need to know which one to use for which problem. So the challenge again is in setting the question, in setting the assessment instrument, because it's not as straightforward as before, right? So that's my take on your concern, Dr. Clarissa, about assessments, and also about, the knowledge being relevant to the students. Elective courses are usually the most fun ones that we take. If you agree with me, Dr. Clarissa, right?
Sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it becomes like because there are not many electives to choose from. This is also from my experience of my friends and also my the more recent students I taught is that some have basically electives forced on them. But of course, it's up to them to stay or not. When they decide to stay on you when they have other things, I take that as a compliment that I give them a lot of work for an elective, but they still stay on. So,
okay. Well, that's on you. That's on you. They love you. They learn a lot from you. That's why they stay on. Remember, the arts model. They are confident. They're satisfied. They come looking for you again and again. Yeah, being, I must say that I have had bad experiences with teaching as much as the good ones, but the good ones motivate us and the bad ones we learn from. We're like, oh, okay, I need to learn that more. So that goes the same with the students, I suppose. My students would take instructional technology as a minor. And taking instructional technology as a minor is something that needs to come from their own motivation, because the other minor would be either, there's moral education, there's Islamic education, there's Arabic language and stuff. The students, my ex-students who did IT with me, found that they are in dire need of that knowledge, even more so right now, because last time after they graduated, they didn't really practice instructional technology, because in schools, who uses technology anyway? But now, since everybody is forced to do it, my students from way back 7, 8 years ago, you know, they're like, oh, madam, now I vividly remember being in your class, you know, with you being so fierce with us doing all this. So that would, you know, it would come back to them someday, if not immediately, maybe somewhere along the line, they would dream of you again. So don't worry, just keep on doing what you're doing, and it will be beneficial to them at some point. They might not realize it yet. All right. So thank you, Dr. Clarissa, for your feedback. Any other feedback from the floor? Or from the screen, for that matter? You're all okay? If you're still with me, raise your hand. All right, great. Wow, you're all still with me. Excellent. I'm so happy. Because 6 hours is no joke. You know? 6 hours teaching online is no joke, I'm telling you. Have you ever done this before? Like 6 hours of teaching online? Okay, thank you. Now, let me just finish off my slides. Okay. So, okay, I'm here. Okay, now in the instructional design process, it went back to, okay. In the instructional design process, to complete it, right? Remember Eddie? There's the letter I, implement. We have worked on our learning design matrix. Now it is time to implement it. So when you implement your lesson, be sure to get feedback. Feedback is in that form of formative assessment or assessment for learning. It is in the form of our own self-reflection, what I did right, what I did not do correctly, why are my students not responding, is somebody there, somebody not there, which materials work, do I play videos, do I, you know, what do I do? What is the best way? Last time, when I run these workshops, the way that I do constructive alignment is that, you know, I give them a topic, I ask them to work in groups, I put them in breakout rooms, I put participants like you in breakout rooms so that they would work out a lesson plan. And then they would come back and I ask them to present. Guess what? Out of the 10 groups, only 1 group did the activity. The rest were like, okay, I'll have coffee and all that. I mean, who monitors them anyway? So I scraped that activity off and I did it chunk by chunk. I asked them to define the learning outcomes first, like you did with your laundry management. And then I asked them to define the assessment and then the activity. That worked better, much better. So that was based on feedback and also reflection. Feedback does not mean that I ask the participants, what do you think? Feedback means I see their responses and the behavior of the participants or the students, right? We improve and we adapt based on the feedback. If we do not get feedback, then we cannot improve. Another way is to plant a spy in your class. An insider means your colleague or somebody to just sit through the class as though they were students and give and ask that person to give you feedback. Can be your best friend, can be a family member. Just sit there and, you know, they would be very blunt or honest with you. Why did you do this? Why is it so boring? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? So that kind of brutal feedback we need. Okay, that is a part of the learning experience design. Okay, the more professional way of doing it is, of course, by sending out surveys. Like, you know, when we sit through a training, you need to fill out a survey, rate this instructor from 1 to 5. So I hope you don't rate me 1. I hope you rate kind of thing. Okay, rate the learning material. So that would be a more professional and more formal way of doing it. But for you, for continuous improvement, CQI, just get that indication from your students, their behavior, and also your friends. They can listen to you and give you feedback. All right, and then finally, in the whole ID process, you need to evaluate. Evaluate your teaching. Evaluate frequently and have frequent checkpoints. Does this module work? Do I need to tweak some of the learning outcomes? Do I need to rearrange some of the topics so that it flows nicely? Do I need to collaborate with other lecturers if I'm team teaching or something like that? Yeah. So this is the whole design process of a certain course, so that it is more impactful and meaningful for the students. All right, I believe this is my last slide. Content precedes design. Design in the absence of content is not design, it is decoration. So be careful when we are choosing tools, choosing certain ways of doing things. We might get overexcited with things like, problem-based learning, brain-based learning, a lot of based learning. You have to relook into your learning outcome. That's the content that precedes design. If that particular approach if that particular tool is a little bit too long of a way to get to where you need to go in terms of learning outcome, choose another one that is easier. All right. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for the experience today. You can email me. I have a website which I have not updated for so long, but it's there if you need to reach me. And I would like to thank ADAC for having me today. It has been a fun experience. I think the last time I was there was a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, of course. I would love to visit UM again sometime and to see all of my friends again, and to see all of you, inshallah. And I'm going to leave this time if you have any further comments or questions. All right, so I will stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to pass it over back to ADAC, Umu, or Dr. Farah, or Dr. Zahir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Dr. Farah nak cakap apa-apa ke?
Ya, ada sikit pesanan untuk kawan lama.
Sila.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemaliza, for sharing your knowledge. Dr. Rosemaliza is an ID expert, instructional design and technology. So she has been training a lot of trainers, TOT, the TOT session with a lot of people in Malaysia. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge. We will definitely invite you again for another session. And I thank everyone, all people in this meeting room, for being here from morning till now. You are such a wonderful person. You have committed a lot of time to attend the session today, and I really hope that you benefit a lot from the session. At last, please don't forget to fill in the evaluation form for us to berhadapan dengan the auditors later. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rose, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Farah, and everybody. You are all wonderful participants today. Thank you so much for being with me and putting up with me the whole day. Thank you.
Everyone is saying thank you in the chat box to you.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just too bad I can't see it.
Sorry?
Too bad I cannot see the chat box.
Yeah. For the participant, please fill in the feedback form, as we need your feedback. We need your input to improve our upcoming training. So thank you very much.
Okay, bye. Assalamualaikum. And have a good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Bye.